Yeah, Tasha.
As you're talking about that, today I had a really nice meditation sitting and being in the nothingness.
Hmm.
But as you were just talking about intellectualizing the
Hmm.
thing,
Yeah.
it dropped me into the, quicker than I got there. I mean, I don't even know if I quote unquote got there in the meditation, but I've experienced it with you talking about it or talking about it with Joe or just listening to interesting podcasts about intellectualizing our way into the oneness. And it's just such an interesting thing because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that you can intellectualize yourself into the but it happens to me in a really intense way often.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm observing and I find interesting right now.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
oh,
I
good.
see it. I see it happening with you in these sessions, Tasha. You're when your face just lights up. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
It feels
It.
beautiful.
Yeah. No. It's great. And oh, I know what you're talking about. And thank you for bringing that up because I'll tend to say, yeah, you can't intellectualize your way there, and it's a and and on the one hand, that's true. You know, if you could intellectualize your way to enlightenment, grad schools would be full of Buddhas, and sadly, they're not. But on the other hand, sometimes that happens. Some magic happens, and in the course of the talking about, I mean, that's jnana yoga in a way. It's the path of union through knowledge, through understanding, where suddenly something about the discussion, it just it elevates us to the 100,000 meter view. I mean, I
Mhm.
first experienced that when I first started getting interested in this stuff. I was like 13 years old or something, and I would go to our local public library, and there was this big volume. It was the wisdom of Oriental literature or something like that, edited by Lin Yu Tang. And it was just an anthology of all these chapters and essays and excerpts from various Eastern scriptures. And just sitting there, whenever I was 13 years old or something, page after page, and just, yeah, I was there. So that can happen. It can happen under any circumstances because the grand nothing, which is all the somethings, is always all the somethings. The miracle is not that once in a while we relax into it and we recognize it. The miracle is that we're not recognizing it all the time. That's the anomaly. That's
Mm.
the anomaly. How can all these waves be going around all the time? So I don't see no ocean. That's ridiculous. Wait, there's an ocean? Wait, I am the ocean? That's the crazy part.
Mhm.
Yeah, Cal?
um, the intellectual and the grad schools not having a lot of monks or Buddhas.
Buddhas.
Yeah, reminds me of something I totally forgot about that happened to me when I was doing my PhD. I was in an English, so I did my PhD in English, and I was in a seminar, and the professor had invited another professor from the religious studies faculty and her grad students, because we were reading some similar piece, and so we all came together in a big seminar to talk about this book. But first of all, because it was two new sets of grad students getting to work with each other, we went around in a circle and introduced ourselves and what we were currently working on in our research. And I did a lot of the kind of research I did was quite personal, and my approach to research is quite eclectic. So I was just listening to everybody. I always love to hear what grad students have to say about their research. I find it really interesting because usually there's a lot of passion there. So I was listening to everybody, and then we got to me, and I hadn't really prepared anything. And because my research didn't follow like a straight line, I just sort of did what felt right at the time. And so I came to me, and I introduced myself, and then I paused to sort of think, okay, what am I currently doing right now? And I hesitated, and I paused, and then it came to me. I said, I've been watching myself think. And the religious studies professor laughed at me, and she said, ho ho, would you like some help doing that? In a really sarcastic way. And like, it was very interesting now that I had done a bit of meditation then, but I wasn't associating that with watching myself think, that was part of the work that I was doing, but I was actually doing meditation, and I was doing a lot of deep observation of self at the time. And I just remember the looks on people's faces. It was really quiet, and also because she laughed at me in a sort of sarcastic way, I think elicited that response in everybody else. But there are not a lot of Buddhas around there. A lot of anxiety and tension.
Yep.
And by the time I was doing my PhD, I didn't have that. I was quite liberated from the academic. I knew what I was doing, and it was fun and great. But yeah, but there was lots of intellectual moments that I had where I feel like, Dean, that's how when I started listening to all your videos on YouTube, I was like, he knows what he's talking about, because I think I intellectualize my way into knowing that so much of what you say, it just made so much sense to me. Like, that is the way it has to be. It describes experiences I've had.
Yeah.
And anyway,
yeah.
Grad school.
Yeah.
Watching yourself think, pretty weird stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Actually, two stories that brings up. One was a friend of mine. He died a few years ago. His name was Baron, and he's a guy that really was just early on. I mean, when I was first getting involved with this stuff in the '60s, he was really. I learned a lot from him, and at one point he was thinking about going back to college and getting a PhD in philosophy. And so he jumped in his car, his old rickety fallen apart Volvo, and drove all over California. And he made appointments to talk to the heads of the philosophy departments. And he would sit down with them and say, well, the word philosophy, philosophia, means love of wisdom. If I get a degree from your philosophy department, will I become wise? Will I gain wisdom? And they all, just as in your story, Calla, they all laughed at him, so he didn't enroll. The other story is from Adi Shankaracharya, the great monk philosopher who's really the founder of Advaita Vedanta philosophy, the real articulation of non-duality. Goes back to Adi Shankaracharya. And the story is he was walking one day on the Ghats by the side of the Ganga, the Ganges River. The Ghats, Ghat is spelled Ghat, and there are these stone steps that lead down to that are built on the banks of the Ganges, on the western bank. The eastern, whenever you see photos of people in India, usually in Varanasi, the holy city, in the Ganges in the morning, doing their morning ablutions and their prayers and their mantras, they're on the Ghats there. And we've been fortunate to spend some time there in Varanasi, and we were staying in a little hotel right just right next to the Ghats, and you get there in the morning as the sun's coming up. All that's going on. It's great. And so the story is one morning, Adi Shankaracharya and a few of his disciples are walking on the Ghats, and he comes across this old pundit. The pundits are the intellectuals. They're like the professors. That word pundit is that we have in English comes from Sanskrit. And the pundits are the masters of the texts. And this old pundit who looks like he's just, teetering on the brink of death. He's so old and feeble. And he's there with students, and he's walking them through the fine points of Sanskrit grammar. And Shankaracharya stops and he watches this going on. And then he addresses the old man, the old pundit, and what he said to him is preserved. He actually wrote it out in this beautiful poem that essentially says, "You fool, you fool! Death is imminent. At the time of death, grammar's not going to help you. Philosophy's not going to help you. The intellect is not going to help you. None of this is going to help you. What's going to help you? Worship the Lord." It's actually put in very devotional terms, which surprises people because they think of Shankaracharya, same thing, as the master of non-dual philosophy, which he is, but it's not separate from the devotional attitude. The ultimately just here I am, ripping my heart open. Let me receive the light. That simplicity.